Welcome to Crafty Hints. I'm Chantel. I'm so excited to have you here today. I want to really welcome all of my new subscribers as well. But if you're someone that's been watching and hasn't subscribed yet, please do. Hit that bell and have it notify you each time I release a new video. I found these boxes at the Dollar Tree. They come with an outside and then they have a little drawer. I took one of the outside and 3 of the insides and I painted the front in white Waverly chalk paint. Next, I took some of the poster board stickers from the Dollar Tree and I'm just pressing that right on top. Make sure your white paint is completely dry before you do this. Otherwise, it will not lift, which is what you're going to want this sticker to come off. So this is our reverse stenciling technique. We're going to press those all down, and now I'm just taking some Waverly Crimson chalk paint, and I'm taking my sponge brush and just dabbing it on there. This will help seal the edges so that none of the paint gets in there. I do that and then I go back over and just give it one coat. I waited just a little bit of time. So give them all a nice coat. The one thing you do want to do with these drawers is make sure and find which is your nice front side, because the insides, as you can see, have flowers or hearts, and you're going to want those to be next to a solid side. All right, now that was dry. I gave it a couple of coats and painted the inside down a little bit just in case it would show. Painted any edges that would show after they're glued together. So we're just removing the stickers off and it has the nice white letters. I decided though that I want to distress this. I did like just the red and the white, and it would be nice and crisp and pretty. But I want it to be like these are some old blocks that have been around for a while. So I went back over it with a sanding block. So just going around those edges, going over the painted letters, some places a little bit harder than others, just how it would weather over time. Now I'm taking a dry brush and it's just a chip brush and I'm just going over it with a little bit of truffle and sanding it back in places. Now I'm taking my hot glue and putting that around the edges that will touch. I'm going to stagger these. So the N will be out front. Now I'm going to push this all the way to the back of the N and make sure it adheres. And you can definitely use some clamps. I'm sorry, those are back a little bit further. You couldn't see that. But that's what I did. I went back and forth. I have the O is placed back, the E's a little bit forward, and then the L's back just a little bit. Just giving those blocks a little bit of a staggered technique. And here I am using this garland. Again, it's like $2.74 for how many feet is that? 9 feet. So I'm just going to keep using this instead of the more expensive way of getting picks. And then I can use as many as I want. It's a decent quality for, under $3. So I'm just undoing those wires and pulling those out. And I'm going to, this is the one that I bought last year at Walmart. And I just continue to pull those off and use them. So I'm going to place those in there. These would be a little bit like what you could get at the Dollar Tree. They're garland ties. It would be similar, but these are a little bit stronger. So I did those at the front and the back of each one. And then I'm going to use a little bit of, I think this was called Rochester Pine, is what that one was. I haven't seen that one quite yet at Walmart. But just continue to stack them in there any way you'd like until it's nice and full and looks the way you want it to. And as you know, if you buy something like, there's a pick. So that would be, 98 cents minimum for that, where we would have needed several of those. All right, and just getting some of the berry pick that I did have, and this will go a long way for mini projects also. So I'm just taking off pieces of that and staggering where I put them in each of my blocks. The greens and reds just look so pretty together. All right, I'm just going to continue to stagger those in each of the 4 blocks. Aren't those pretty? I tucked a couple little pine cones in there and it's good to go. I think those are so pretty. And it looks a little old, a little bit worn. This video is part of Heidi's Christmas DIY challenge, so there will be a great playlist below. So go hit that link. There will also be a link to Heidi's channel. If you're not subscribed there, please do so. She is one talented lady. I found these lanterns at the Dollar Tree, and they have these cute little LED candles. They're adorable, but they have that white plasticky look, of course, so I knew we could do something with them. I popped it apart, taking the top off and the candle, and I gave it a once over inside and out with Waverly chalk paint in white. And I apologize if you hear some jingles. I've got some little guests in here. So after I painted that inside and out and the top, I grabbed the LED candle because, of course, a flame isn't going to just be this stark white. And they do light up a bit, but I wanted when it lit up to look a little bit more yellow. So I am giving this a once over in the color Maize. You might want to even use acrylic paint as it won't be quite as thick. Next, I wanted to add some accents to this. So I got this garland from Walmart, just like I did last year. I bought a couple of garlands, and this way I'm not spending a bunch of money on different picks. If I'm spending $1 on each pick, then that's going to get expensive. But if I spend like $10 or so for a big old garland that lasts me all year, I still have some from last year, but I like this flocked one, and I did spend a little bit more on this one. But it has a couple different types of pine. I've already made a couple of projects using this, and you can't even tell. I haven't even had to undo the band yet. So I'm just sticking this inside the lantern, and that's why it's great with this LED candle. It'll look pretty from the outside, just showing a little bit of that greenery. That white and green will just pop with this lantern. So I put about 3 in there, and then any of these little pieces that were still sticking, I clipped those off and just tucked those in there as well. Now I wanted this other, oh my goodness, I can't think of what type of pine that is, but I wanted this one instead, but some of the needles were a little bit long, so I just snipped those down a little bit. I want to put 2 of these on the top of the lantern. So I just measured that a little bit to make sure that they'll fit well. Next, I'm going to put that lid back on. After that, we'll be able to adhere them. So it just has these little tabs that you need to get in there. I also want to add a little bit of berries. The green and the red and the white just go so pretty together. So I'll clip a little bit of that off. Now I'm taking this at another angle that might help you to see just a little bit better. After I glued that, I could tell, you can still see those melt just a little bit with the hot glue, but I used the lower temp hot glue and just am adding in those berries. I think these look so pretty together. And then I just use a little dot of glue to hold that little ring up at the top. Aren't those pretty? At night, you can see the glow, of course, a bit better. I found these packs at the Dollar Tree, and they come with Santa and some candy canes and some other trees. And you can actually save yourself a moment. What I ended up doing is I did just cut off the trunks, and if you wiggle that side to side, it actually cuts it a little bit easier. Here I'm just taking some chalk paint and I painted them green, and as you can see, I did end up cutting the trunks off. I tried them in brown and wasn't as happy with them. Now I'm taking some 3D puffy paint. You can find this at the Dollar Tree. I've also seen it at Walmart. And I'm just making some snow on these trees. Just trying to, knock these up a notch or two. Now these are ones that could stick around into your winter decor and don't have to just be for the holidays. And it's a little bit relaxing to sit there and just paint on the snow. I found it really relaxing, and figure out which way the snow might hit and which way it might melt. So kind of fun just to add that on there. And I did all 3 trees this way. When I did decide which trees I wanted, I did make sure to flip over so that the 2 big trees are facing the other direction. Next, I took some Waverly antique wax, and I'm just putting that over this wood. Now, these are just some scrap pieces that I had, and I cut them to be the base for my tree. And I'm just going over that with a wet wipe and the antique wax. I went over it on all sides. You could probably leave the bottom undone if you wanted. These are just wooden skewers. Now I'm just going to drill a hole just a little bit larger than what my skewers are. And of course, then my skewers fit a little bit snug, so I went back and just wiggled the drill bit just side to side just a little bit so that it gave me a little bit of room to get that in there and a little bit of glue. So just going to wiggle that just a tiny bit. Or you could take the next size up and go partway in. Now I took some hot glue and then just attached the skewer and then put them in the base with a little bit of wood glue. And here's how they turned out. Here is another way you can use the Dollar Tree Christmas trees. Now, I don't need the base of it, so I pulled that off. And now you're just going to pull all of those out. We're going to make a little swag. So when you're fluffing those out, you do want to make sure that a couple of branches face down the middle so that you don't see that metal base. And just keep taking them and tweak them around a little bit. Now I'm taking some more of that garland that I used earlier and just undo some of those branches. And now I'm just wrapping them around that center. I'm just on each side of it, just trying to make it that this has a nicer texture to it than the Dollar Tree one, but it helps make it to be a nice full tree. Not tree, I'm sorry, a swag. So you have a couple different types of greenery in there. Once you're happy with it, make yourself a bow. I did 5 loops. So I would suggest to make 2 larger loops and then 2 just a little bit smaller and then 1 smaller that goes right across the middle. You can tie this with whatever you'd like. I found a zip strip works really nice. Just pull that tight, arrange your bow a little bit. And pull it tight, and then you're just going to clip off that end. Now take another piece of ribbon and tie that around the center so it just looks like it was all tied together and just a happy pretty bow. I like this. It gave it a little bit of a country feel, a little nostalgia. I don't know. It was a warm feeling bow, and I thought it would go well with this. Now, as I was deciding how I would attach it and it would lay, I decided I would use some floral wire, slip that right under the loop, and then I will just run that wire around the pole. And then up at the top of that, you'll want to just put another little piece of greenery just to cover the top of that pole. Now I want to go in with some red berries because the red and the green just look so pretty and it'll match our bow a little bit. So just snip off some pieces and then you can just glue those in as you'd like. You could also use the floral wire if you're partial to that. Whichever way, of course, this is your project. These are just a few ideas on how to go about it. I'm just trying to get in between these berries and get around that glue so that I don't lose too much and that you have some white areas. So just a little bit of hot glue and I tuck them in and under and around the bow, and sometimes I glue the bow to it just to hold everything in place so that it lays nicely. I think this will actually be for on my guest bathroom door. So just a little nice piece of home decor. This could be perfect on your front door as well. You're also going to just make a metal loop up at the top where I had adhered the bow to it with a wire. Make a nice metal loop and wrap that around a little bit, and that'll make a great hanger for the back of this. Now I'm just tucking in a couple pine cones. I lucked out. I have one of these trees in my backyard, and they just work so nicely, but you could still go for a walk. I think there's still time to gather up some pine cones. But whenever you do that, if you go to parks or anything like that, if you don't have a pine tree, be on the lookout. My one tree gives me new pine cones several times a year. All right, I'm gluing some underneath, some on top, some like they're growing off of the little pieces of greenery, wherever it looks good to you. Now I took this metal welcome from a fall packet from the Dollar Tree. They also have larger ones that they're selling individually now. I used a little bit of that floral wire. It'll blend in nicely with the greenery. I did that on each of the E's. Isn't that pretty? Here is one more look. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. If you've enjoyed these, I hope that you'll give me a thumbs up. I also hope that you'll leave a comment. Let me know, are you someone that will be decorating in traditional colors, or are you more of a neutral home? Let me know. Thank you so much. I will respond to each and every comment. Have a blessed day. Don't forget to visit the playlist, and I'll also show you a couple of videos at the end you might enjoy.